Well, one of the things I like to do is be a guest on podcasts. So thanks again for having me on, right?
Our pleasure.
So
our pleasure.
It's fun. It's fun for me to have these one-on-one conversations with people all over that live out that, anyone can listen to and hopefully learn from.
Welcome to the Going Long Podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. And yes, it's the same guy. It's me. I'm your host, Billy Keels, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you back to today's conversation because it's going to be really, really awesome. Like, especially if you're someone who's been in the corporate world, someone who is a mother of a family of 5, which is amazing, busy professionals. Like, you're really going to enjoy today's conversation, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But before we do that, I just want to continue to thank you as Going Long family for continuing to download the episodes, share them, talk to them about with your family, with your friends. And also for those of you that continue to leave your honest written reviews as well as ratings, really, really appreciate you. And if you hadn't had a chance to do that, just go ahead and just leave it on the Apple platform, the Apple Podcast platform. We've got a short video here. You can leave it there. It's great because it's one of the great ways that we are able to attract amazing guests to help you to share their stories so that you can get closer to your dreams and goals much faster. Second thing, I know a lot of you continue to ask, like, how do you find the previous episodes? Go to billykeels.com. When you get there, go to the podcast tab and you can see every single episode, every single guest there. Everything's there, billykeels.com. And you will find under the podcast tab, every single previous podcast. And then lastly, and I know I'm going to keep talking about it, you want to go, and if you're an accredited investor and you want to find out more about what other accredited investors are thinking or doing, or you want access to specific opportunities, especially for those of you that are getting crushed by taxes, like, this is probably one of the best places you can go, especially if it's taxes from your W-2. Definitely send an email to aiclub@billykeels.com. Once again, it's for accredited investors only, aiclub@billykeels.com. Send me an email and we'll connect, and we can get you connected with the accredited investor club. So with that stated, today you're going to, like I said, you're going to enjoy today's conversation. A mother of 5, a corporate soldier that went from the corporate life success and now has transitioned full time into building her own business, really focused on education, helping people to understand what it's like to invest with groups of people in much larger, higher valued assets. I know you're going to enjoy today's conversation with Camilla Jeffs, and we're going to get to that conversation just after this. Are you looking for a way to get to long distance investing success, but not spending all the effort? You want to do it in a way that's much faster and it doesn't cause as much pain? Well, listen, I can save you all of that stress. Just go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes and you can pick up your free PDF to help you on your road to long distance investing success. You know what? If you want to understand how to effectively create steady streams of long distance investing success to serve your future financial goals, then guess what? Today's a conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very last word. You know why? I really know you're going to want to listen to the very last word because today's guest not only is a mother of 5 and a triathlete, which I think is just absolutely phenomenal just to start things off. She actually today spends lots of her time educating busy professionals on how to invest in real estate. And you know what? She's actually spent more than 18 years of experience in a diverse number of real estate invested related industries. And she's going to tell you about those and the different roles, because I don't even it's a super long list. I don't even want to tell you all about that. But most importantly, she is the founder and the CEO of Steady Stream Investments. It gives me great pleasure to welcome to today's conversation, Camilla Jeffs. Camilla, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Billy. I'm excited to be here.
That makes 2 of us. I'm super excited. I can't wait for you to tell your story. I love your energy, and you love long distance investing, and you being able to share all the wonderful things that you do and the lives that you're impacting. I know is going to be absolutely phenomenal for the Going Long family. So I'm going to stop talking because I want them to start to get to know you. And you know that I have 5 questions. I'm going to ask you 2 in the beginning. I'm going to ask you 3 in the end. In the middle, I have no idea what I'm going to ask you, but I know whatever your answers are, they're going to add lots of value to the Going Long family. So if you're ready to get started, I would love for you to help me and the Going Long family understand, Camilla, where do you live in the United States?
So currently I live in the North Dallas, Texas area and way out in the country. I'm not much of a city girl. I love the country. And so we moved way out here so we could have chickens. And we love raising chickens and having our own space and having room to, be our own selves.
Well, that's pretty awesome. And what we've just gone through for the last couple of years, actually having lots of space and chickens, I'm sure was something that was actually very, very awesome, because I'm a kid from Columbus, Ohio, although I live in the city of Barcelona now. Enjoying and having space to move around is something that I'm sure lots and lots of people are now really, really appreciating. So thank you for sharing that. Speaking of which, can you help us understand what's the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours, Camilla?
So the most positive thing that's happened is that we bought a short-term rental just a couple months ago, and we were just up there yesterday working on it, and we are building this really cool bunk room for kids, and it's like a treehouse theme, and it's super cool. And my husband is amazing, and he is good at designing things like this and building it, and I'm just the helper. But it was really fun to be there, just the two of us together working on this bunk room together.
Oh, fantastic. So that sounds awesome. Yeah, I have zero talent when it comes to either even architecting, putting things together. I haven't taken a cooking class. That's something that's completely different. But
there you go. There you go.
You got to try different things. So thank you very much for sharing that positivity with us. And you know what, Camilla, here's the thing. The Going Along family, every single week they forgive me, because I try to do something that's really impossible. And that is tell your story in 3.5 seconds. Ain't ever going to happen. I know that, but I try. I always like to give myself these impossible tasks, but they forgive me every week. And so I'm hoping that you will also forgive me, but more importantly, that you will help me by you telling your own backstory in your own words. And if you could also, Camilla, could you help us understand some of the major decisions that you've made to get to this point in your journey? And then we'll see where the conversation goes from there.
Absolutely. So my story started out living in a garage. and so my husband and I, we got married young, and we had no money. We were both students in college, determined to get through college with no debt, which is not very easy to do. So we're both working part-time jobs, going to college full-time, and we could only afford to live in a garage. and so it was interesting. It was not the best accommodations I've ever lived in, for sure. It's actually the worst. But while we're living there, our landlady came to collect the rent, and I just asked her a question, and I was just curious, and I just said, I know you own several rentals. How did you do that? Right? How did you get there? And so we had this great conversation, and she gave me some advice. And then at the end, she says, what you should do is you should buy a house. And I was like, well, wait. I am living in your garage apartment thing. Right. You think I have money to buy a house? And she was a realtor. So I thought, well, she has ulterior motives. She just wants to make money off of me, Right. And she said, no, Camilla, listen. You could buy a house, and there's all sorts of first-time homeowner programs. So you could get in for very little down, really great interest rates, and you could buy a house that has a apartment in the basement and rent it out, and you would be living just fine. And I was like, really? And it was this new concept that I'd never heard of, but I thought, well, let's give it a try. Might as well try it. Let's give it a try. And that's exactly what we did. We bought a 6-bedroom home that had a basement apartment, and we rented that apartment out, and we ended up living there for $150 a month was all that we had to pay. And the house had a pool in the backyard. How cool was that? And so it was pretty awesome to be able to do this. And that's when I was like, okay, there's something to real estate. There's really something to real estate. And I need to figure it out. And I need to figure out how to continue to do this. Well, meanwhile, we had our first child at that home. And so we're like, okay, well, we got a baby, how do you do real estate? And, and it got a little bit uncomfortable having people in our basement and, making noise when the baby was supposed to be sleeping. Right. But it was okay. Right. It was still worth it. And so then we thought, well, okay, let's try another strategy. Let's keep this house. Let's move out. And now we can rent both the top and the bottom. So now we're going to be positive, making money on this house. And then we'll move into another place. But again, we don't have very much money, right? Even though we only had to pay $150 a month on our mortgage, now we had a baby. And, by this time my husband had finished school, but I had not quite finished school. So still trying to finish school. And I couldn't work very much because, again, the baby. So
I would tend to say you were probably working double or triple than what you
absolutely.
were before.
Just not paid work, right? Like unpaid labor, all of that. And so then we're like, well, okay, we know that it's really easy to get into a house ourselves. And so the next house we bought was a fixer-upper. So we decided, okay, we're going to buy a fixer-upper. Let's move in. Let's figure out how to fix this thing up. We don't have tons of skills, but we can figure it out. We were young and strong and ambitious. And so that's what we did. So we moved into a house, a junky house, and we lived there, fixed it up. And then we moved out and rented that one. And we kind of did that over and over and over again for about 15 years. We did this strategy. And so we would live there about 2 years. Then we'd move out, rent it or sell. Sometimes we sold, and then just went and did the next one. And so, we started accumulating some houses this way, but they weren't making us tons of money, right? I mean, in equity, of course, they were building up. But when you own a single family home, and you're making like $100 a month, but you're still working a lot, you're like, this is, this really worth it? And so then I thought, well, okay, let's do a fourplex. Let's try and get a small multi. And so that was the next step. We got a small multi, and then so let's fast forward 15 years later, right? So from when we bought our first one and 15 years later, I was completely burnt out.
Sorry to interrupt, but really quickly, because I think this is really, really interesting. And I really want the Going Long family to hear what you are saying. But from the time that you bought that first one where someone was living in the basement and you decided to go from the single family, because you were doing this in a very diligent manner, to buying the first fourplex, do you know about more or less how much time transpired?
That was about 10 years.
10 years. Okay. So then you're 10 years and then you continued 5 years. You're mixing smaller multifamily and single family. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep. And so I hit this point where 15 years in to our investing journey, I kind of hit a ceiling in terms of of a bunch of different things. So one, of course, money, right? So we're still low on money, and then time, right? Time and work and skills and all of those things that you have to put into it, because that whole time we were DIY, do it all ourselves. And we'd had 5 kids in those 15 years, right? So we have 5 children, and we're thinking, okay, how do we do this? Now, I mean, the children they weren't a negative at all in our business. We actually just brought them along with us, and they came and helped us. And, our kids are teenagers now. And our last live and flip that we did, they were amazing workers. Like, they can all tile and sheetrock and baseboard and do all sorts of things. And they're fantastic. In fact, here's a funny story. One of my kids came home the other day and they're like, "Mom, my friend doesn't know what a baseboard is. Can you believe that?"
Think about that. I said
baseboard, and they're like, "What?" So anyway, we hit this ceiling 15 years, and I'm just burnt out, completely burnt out. And I think a lot of landlords hit this place, right? So you've been working so hard in your business, and you're just kind of to a point where there's got to be a better way. And so I'm thinking about what's the better way, and I think back about my journey. I'm like, if we could just buy an apartment complex, maybe that would be the thing. And maybe that would help us be set for life and finally hit our financial freedom. And so I'm like, okay, let's buy an apartment complex. So I go looking at apartment complexes, and I'm like, oh no, there are millions of dollars, and check my bank account. There's not millions of dollars in my bank account. I'm like, oh man, how do you even buy an apartment complex? This is so crazy. So started doing some research, figured out, oh, you actually don't buy it on your own. Okay, well, maybe some people do that has millions of dollars in their bank account. But for us regular people with, families, we don't. So I'm like, okay, you actually buy it as a group. And this was fascinating to me. The whole concept of group investing, where some people just simply invest their money. Other people invest their time. Other people invest their skills. Other people invest their expertise. And you combine all of that together, and suddenly you can purchase a multi-million-dollar apartment complex. And I was like, mind blown. This is amazing. Yeah, for real. So the first thing I did was invest passively into one of these investments. Because I want to make my money work hard for me. Invested passively. And I was so blown away because that money is making me more than some of my single family homes ever did. Right. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. How did I not know about this a long time ago? But that's okay. I never regret, my own journey. Our journeys are our own. Right. And they get us to where we want to be. And so I'm just grateful that I found it when I did. And now today I got so excited about passive investing that I launched Steady Stream Investments, which is a passive investing education company. And we just put out lots and lots of education to educate other burnt out landlords and families how they can also invest in real estate while preserving their time. And so you can still go to all the soccer games. You can still go on vacations with your family. And so it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So there's so many different nuggets that we're going to talk about, because I know that the Going Long family needs to hear more of your story. And, a couple of things that resonate with me is, as you mentioned I was doing very similar thing, right? I was in Barcelona, Spain, and I was buying these smaller multifamily and buy a mobile home park, and you start doing all this stuff. And then it was like a couple of years later that I found out that there was this thing where I could actually just put my money with someone else. They would do all the work, and I would just kind of collect checks or wire transfers or whatever. And I was like, wait a minute, hang on. What is this world? Why did no one ever tell me about this? And so I did that just for a couple of years, but I can only imagine, like, you're doing this 15 years later going, hang on a second, what is this all about? I can get more of my time back. I love that. But one of the things that is really, really interesting that you said is when you started out with that very first property where you had someone that was living in the basement and you only had to pay another $150, if I understood that correctly. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when you did that, I'm just thinking, like, you did that, you had that first success, and then you decided that you were going to leave. You had the child at that point, your first child at that point in time, and you moved somewhere else. But that's something like maybe a lot of people will think, yeah, financially, I think that makes sense, but it doesn't really, I don't know. I don't know if I feel comfortable letting someone into my world. And so you kind of had both of those things, because you were doing it in the beginning. And then as you started having your family grow, you decided that you didn't want to have someone else in your home. But just maybe talk to us about what it took to actually move on average every 2 years and start this over. Because I think financially, a lot of people will think about, yeah, that makes sense. But maybe you can talk to us about some of a different emotion or the reasons that you decided that it was the right thing for you and your family.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. When I mention our journey, and how many times we've physically moved to different homes and states, right? Like, so we've moved to, the last 4 years, we've moved to 4 different states. Now, that wasn't always by choice. A lot of it was W-2 job, my W-2 job moving us all around, which I recently left. So I could be full-time in real estate and full-time with my family. So, which is awesome.
Congratulations. Welcome.
Congratulations. Thank you. But yeah, so the emotions behind it, it's really interesting. People get attached. You get attached to your place where you are, your area. But I think for us, it was always we need a new adventure. So my husband and I both kind of grew up in one place. Well, eventually, right? So I was actually born in Frankfurt, Germany. My dad was in the military. But then by the time I was 7 or 8, we had settled in one place. And for the rest of my, childhood lived in one place. My husband, born and raised in the same house, right? And so we had been, I think when you are born and raised in one place, you have one way of thinking, right? And that's not a bad thing. That's not a good thing. It's just is what it is, right? Yep. Mm-hmm. But for me, I was antsy and I was anxious, and I wanted to find out other ways of thinking and find out other ways of living and other ways people do life, right? And rather than just my one way. And so when we got the opportunity to move to a different state, Indiana was the first state, I just jumped at it. I was like, yes, let's go. Let's go and figure this out. And I was so excited for the adventure, but not just the adventure, but for the opportunity for my children to meet new people and to gain that skill set. And so this is something I talk to my kids about often, because kids, it is hard to move, right? It's not like it's been an easy thing for our family. Every single move has had its own set of hard, and it's always hard for the kids integrating into a new school, integrating into a new, church, group. And, but the cool thing that has happened, though, Billy, with our kids and us, is that we have gained some pretty amazing social skills to be able to enter into new environments and be okay, right? So, of course, it's hard for a little bit, but it's not hard. Like, my kids are not crying for months and thrown in depressive episodes because they just cannot function without their core friends. And so I always think about this, like, who's going to be with you forever in life? Your family. And so family was so important to us, and us moving that many times brought us so close together as a family. Like, these family bonds are so tight. And I have friends say to me all the time, why don't your kids never fight? And I'm like, well, they argue once in a while, but no, right? We don't have fist fights, or we don't have yelling fights that, they're, because we've had to learn to really rely on each other. And I think that's the emotional positive that has come out of us moving a lot, right? So of course, financially it was good for us, but emotion positiveness and the chance for us to go and live in different parts of the States. Like when we moved to Atlanta, now we're suddenly in a very, very diverse atmosphere, right? Where we are the minority. And I loved it. I loved the opportunity for my kids to be the minority and to experience that. And so it's been pretty amazing thing for us.
Yeah. And when you have amazing family experiences, and you talk about that, I mean, I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, but we moved to Colorado, Texas, and we moved different places within that. And so you're saying a lot of things that resonate with me. And I think also a lot of the Going Long family, which is part of the reason that our family continues to grow, because some of these unique experiences that we have early on in life really help us later. They may be difficult. Like, I remember my brother and my sister, we were always the new kids in class. And as we traveled around and changed houses 10 times in 3 states and stuff like that, and it was challenging at the time, but I start realizing later, and I'm sure that you and your husband see this, like at this point in my life, I've traveled to 86 countries. And so being the new person in town and meeting different people, and I've lived in Europe the last 20 years, these are the same type of skills that you're talking about that go beyond any type of a financial reward. So you were actually getting both. You were getting a financial reward that was happening, and then also you're seeing your children also benefit from that. You're a closer family unit. And I think these are some of the things and the emotions that we don't necessarily talk about that are also positive benefits that can come from living outside of your comfort zone, if you will. So I'm glad that you shared that with us. Thank you very much. And I didn't know if you wanted to build or say something on top of that.
No, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So listen, with that, in this kind of, a lot of times I ask people, like, why do they get into real estate? And you've talked about that, but because this is kind of the Going Long podcast, and we really want to help people feel comfortable and confident going beyond your backyard. And your story is so awesome. So you're in Texas, right? And are all of the assets that you own in Texas, like literally right across the street from where you live?
0 of them are in Texas.
Oh my gosh. Can you say that again, please? Can you say that again? 0.
I have 0 in Texas.
Okay. So here's the thing, Camilla, and I just absolutely have to ask you this question because most people say like, hey, when you buy a property or you invest in a property, you got to be the landlord. You got to go across the street and check it out and and make sure everything is in place. I fundamentally don't believe that that's the only way to do it. And most of, or if not everyone in the Going Long family also believes it's not the only way to do it. But I would love for you to share with us, and hopefully people are starting to see the pattern here, but what was it that allowed you to feel comfortable to continue to invest in places where you don't actually physically live or you can't get in your car and go 5 minutes down the road to do that?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is just having a team that you can rely on in those different areas. Bingo. Right. So I'll come back in my journey. At first I did have that mindset, right? I did have to invest. And so we lived in Northern Utah and almost all of our assets were in Northern Utah. And then, like I said, we got the opportunity to move to Indiana. And I'm like, yes, we're going. But we didn't want to sell all of our assets, and so we had to figure it out. And so we moved to Indiana and we hired a property manager. They took care of it. And I was like, this is kind of cool. Then we picked up a couple assets in Indiana, invested there. And then we moved to another state, hired a property manager to take care of it. Right. And so really it's pretty simple, actually. Like it's not that hard to hire a property manager. I mean, of course, you have to interview them and find a good one, of course. But man, they take care of everything for you. And I always call that mailbox money. I wrote a whole blog post about this, like mailbox money. That those assets in Indiana, I thought about them once a month when I got the check in the mail, right? And I was like, oh, cool. This is awesome, And so now that I've moved into large apartment investing, it has opened up like the whole US and probably the world, right? Eventually to be able to invest anywhere, to invest in the best markets in the, that have the best fundamentals happening in them. And so, if I live out here in the country, there's no apartment complexes for me to buy, right? In my city. And so I can invest in, so right now I'm investing in Arizona, and I love Arizona because huge population growth, huge job growth, the job diversity is all over the place and has a great landlord state. And I can have access to that market because there are strong teams on the ground who know what they're doing. Right. And as a passive investor, I mean, I think that's gold for you, because you can invest literally, you can handpick a market and be like, yep, I want to invest there. Now, if you find yourself a strong team who knows what they're doing in that market, you invest with them and suddenly you have access to the best deals.
Wow. Don't you just love this conversation? This is amazing. This is fantastic. And so just really quickly, I just wanted to remind you, for those of you that are looking to create more options for yourself, get there faster, and do that with long distance investing, make sure that you go to billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid so that you can avoid all those mistakes, get to your goals faster and sooner. Once again, that's billykeels.com/7 mistakes to avoid. Now back to the conversation. One of the things that you talked about, so aside from being able to have access to the best opportunities, the best deals, it doesn't depend on the geography. And I really want to make sure that the Going Long family heard what you said in the beginning. As you were living in Utah, you started out purchasing assets that were in the same area. And once again, the Going Long family, we're not saying that you can't do that, but it's not the only way. I mean, I'm watching you talk about like now you're in Texas and you're investing in Arizona and you've got this smile like from ear to ear. So it's just, it's amazing to realize what having that geographic freedom of being able to invest with strong teams is something that, I mean, it brings joy. It can bring joy to you, to your heart, to your family and things like that, which I think is amazing. I do want to draw on your experience, Camilla, because you talked about, and I'm completely aligned with this, right? I think you need to understand first and foremost, like as a person, what benefit are you looking to derive? Go to the location that gives you the best possible probability of getting that benefit. And then, which ties in really with a lot of what you were talking about in landlord friendly states, et cetera, et cetera. But then afterwards, you have to have a team. if you want to be able to do this long distance investing effectively and successfully. And then afterwards, it doesn't matter what the opportunity is. It can be a 500 unit apartment building, 100 unit apartment building, whatever other asset and energy equipment, any of that kind of stuff. But I would love for you to talk about maybe a little bit, what are some of the things that you look for when you are vetting the team? Because they're the ones that are going to be doing the work every day in many different capacities. And I'm talking about specifically in terms of operating an asset or operating a specific building that you're there. Maybe you could give us some insight into some of the things that you look for.
Bet. So when I'm looking at teams and evaluating them, one of the things that I always look for is a strong track record. So I want to know that this is not your first time investing in this market, right? Like I want to know that you've been there, done that. You have experienced some challenges. So I always like to ask, what's the biggest challenge that you've experienced in real estate, or when have you lost money? Because here's the thing. If you've been in real estate for very long, you know that there's been times when you've lost money, right? Like I've lost money.
We're both putting our hands up. If you're not watching the video version, you should jump over and check out the video version. We both had our hands up.
But the important thing is not whether you lost money or not, but how did you react to that? Yeah. And how did you, and in the case of large apartment, like group investing, how did you protect those who just invested their money, right? Who are relying on you to run the project well. And so that's one of the questions that I like to ask. And so I'm looking for a strong track record. I'm looking for someone who has been able to achieve returns for the investors that they projected they would achieve. And so not just that, to be able to under promise and over deliver, right? Like that's also something important. And so these teams that are there, that's what I'm looking for, is just that really strong track record. And then the second thing I'm looking for is a high level of communication. I believe in transparency. I think that as a passive investor, another cool thing about joint investment is not only that your money is going to grow really well and you preserve your time, but you're going to get insight into how apartment investors run their business. So if you later want to become them, right? Like you want to enter in and become a general partner on a deal instead of just, simply being a limited partner. You can. That's a great first step, is by investing passively first and learning from them. So really high levels of communication, always, they're available and ready to answer the questions. And then proactive communication as well. So making sure that investors receive all, every month they're getting information about here's how the property is going, here's the financials, here's how we're doing, and we've turned 8 units this week, and now we're going to do some more, and and what's going on with the property. So those two things are critical to me.
Perfect. So high levels of communication and having a track record that you can draw on. You didn't say that they had to have a perfect track record. You just wanted to also understand from that track record, what have they done when they've faced adversity? And I think that's fantastic and great insights. As it relates to communication, Camilla, what have you found either as a limited partner or a passive investor, or now on the active side, on the general partner side, that you feel like in the communication? I know you gave us a couple of examples, but if you had to say, like, there is literally one thing that has to be in every single piece of communication, what would you say that one thing would be?
That one thing needs to be exactly what's happening with the property. So I don't want to have anything hidden, right? So say suddenly there was like 10 people that moved out, and that was unexpected. And so now all of a sudden occupancy has dropped by if it's 100 units, that's 10%, right? 10% occupancy has dropped. I want you to spell that out and to just let us know, hey, this unexpected thing happened. And so now we're addressing it. And here's the 3 things that we're going to do to address it. So that's what I want to see in every communication. Okay.
All right. Well, that makes a lot of sense. What's happening, and being able to, spell that out for people. So there's a couple other things. So like, you've done so many things, and you've been like very humble, because there's you're like, all the stuff you've done is amazing, right? I mean, everything from literally head coaching a varsity soccer team to managing a household at the same time you're building a business, and teaching So all of these things that you are doing have kind of this underlying, I think, a theme from the things that I just talked about, which is really helping to transfer knowledge, right, from someone either as a coach or a head of household to your children, to your team, and that teaching concept I know is something that you really enjoy, and it's one of the things that we see manifests itself with Steady Stream Investments. So maybe you could talk to us a little bit about kind of how you're going out to continue to educate the marketplace and bring value based on the things that you've lived yourself.
Yeah. So, well, one of the things I like to do is be a guest on podcasts. So thanks again for having me on, right?
Our pleasure.
So
pleasure.
It's fun. It's fun for me to have these one-on-one conversations with people all over that live out that, anyone can listen to and hopefully learn from. And I love listening to podcasts. And so that's why I make an effort to be a guest on podcasts so that other people can learn from me. Some of the other things that we're doing at Steady Stream Investments is we have live webinars. So we hold a live webinar once a month. So you can come and learn, and they're short, they're 20 minutes, and then followed by 10 minutes of Q&A. So you can ask me any questions that you want live. And I create lots of videos about it. And then my favorite thing I've done is I created a course that's called Passive Investing Made Easy. And it's a series of videos that you can grab just off the Steady Stream Investments website. And it just walks you through the whole process from A to Z. I think one of the things that I really try to focus on is simplifying complex concepts. And sometimes, and even when, I'll tell you my journey, right? So 15 years in being a real estate investor. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I found apartment investing. Let's join a group investment. There was a lot of things that I had never heard of before. I'd never heard of cap rate. I'd never heard of equity multiple or preferred return. I mean, all of these terms. I mean, in fact, the big term syndication is one that I don't ever use because someone said syndication to me and I'm like, I felt stupid.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that is. So,
it happens to all of us.
I like to simplify these complex topics so that you can really understand. And so I use a lot of analogies and, like for cap rate analogy, for example, it's just like a seesaw, so cap rates have an inverse relationship. So think of a seesaw. So if a cap rate goes down, property values go up. If the cap rate goes up, property values go down. And it's just this seesaw, right? And so you can visualize yourself on, or I called it a teeter-totter when I was a kid.
I was thinking of a teeter-totter as well. And by the way, she just, once again, I'm drawing everybody. If you're not watching the video version, watch the video version. You'll see what she just did. It's an amazing visual. Check us out.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of that stuff lives on my website or my YouTube channel. And you can get that, or, LinkedIn. I really love to write. And so I'll write a lot on LinkedIn and put out a bunch of analogies and information there too, just to constantly educate. That's what I'm all about, right? So whether you invest with me and some of my teams, or you invest with another awesome guest that Billy has had on the podcast, that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that you invest and that you learn the concepts and feel comfortable investing in one of these projects, because it literally can change your life.
Which is awesome. Which is absolutely awesome. We love things that can positively change people's lives here, and appreciate you sharing what you do, where we can find you, and you can even be more specific in just probably a minute or two. But the thing is, we have to get to this thing called the going long final three, Camilla, that you know about. And the thing is, I never ask anybody the going long final three unless they tell me, and today you're our special guest. So unless you tell me that you're ready for the going long final three, I won't ask you. So let me ask you, are you ready?
I am ready.
Yes, you are ready. You were born ready. So here we go. So we started with you over there in the northern part of the Dallas area. And now I'd like to bring it back to this side of the pond. And I know you used to live over here. And actually, I think I mentioned to you before, and if I didn't, I used to work for a really large German software company for many, many years. And so we'll have to talk more about your European adventure, because I know you were here in Belgium and Netherlands and all that kind of cool stuff. But anyway, I would love, because I'm now over here in Barcelona, Spain, but I would love for you to share with us, what is your favorite European city that you've either visited or is still on your bucket list to visit, Camilla?
My favorite is Amsterdam. And I've been to Amsterdam a couple of times. And the reason I love Amsterdam is I just love the bikes. So I'm a big outdoor person, right? Yeah. So I love anything that has to do with bikes or sorry, not with bikes, with physical movement outside. So I rented a bike and biked around Amsterdam. The canals are so beautiful. And it was just this beautiful city. And then also while I was there, I had a chance to go visit the flower market and see that whole, interaction and the smell. It was just amazing.
It's really, really awesome. I remember one of my first times in Amsterdam, I went to and rented one of the boats and was out on the canal. It was pretty amazing. So awesome. So there's another vote for Amsterdam. Camilla, appreciate you sharing that. And now I want to get into question number 2, which really has a lot to do with the experiences that I've had with learning from very successful people. And so this is a great chance for you to share with the Going Along family, because I also consider you to be someone who's very successful, Camilla. And one of the things, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, like one of the things that I recognize with really successful people is that they tend to be successful, and like most people, but because when they do something the first time, they get it right, which allows them to actually accelerate and I think I missed. I think I did. It's a joke. Don't worry, Camilla. It's just a joke. It's a joke. It's an inside joke with me and the Going Along family. You're going, so no, here's the thing. I know you're worried about me. I appreciate that. No, here's the thing. That's kind of a joke. But the thing is with really successful people, this actually isn't a joke. They actually make a lot of mistakes, a whole lot more mistakes usually than most people. But the reality is that they do one thing very, very differently than most. And that is every single time that there is a relevant mistake, learning opportunity, whatever you want to call it, they stop and they learn from that mistake or learning opportunity. And then more importantly, when they learn from that, what they do is they put different strategies, tactics, and actions in place to minimize the probability of that exact same thing happening again. So if you could think about really one of the learning opportunities or mistakes that you've made, but not really think there, but more importantly, what is the one lesson that you learned as a result of that mistake or learning opportunity that you know that the Going Along family needs to hear today to minimize the probability of the exact same thing happening to them?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the first time that I attempted to be a general partner on a deal, right? So I had been a limited partner. I'd been invested passively. And then I thought, okay, I think I'm ready. And I think I can help other people invest into these apartments as well. And so I started talking to other people about it. And they were all interested. They're like, wow, yeah, that sounds cool. That sounds super cool. I'm like, awesome. Okay. Well, next time, I'm working with somebody, and when we have a deal ready, will you invest? I think so. I think I'll invest, And so then the deal gets ready, and I was like all excited, and I sent it to all those people and thinking that a whole bunch of them would invest, and one person invested. And I was devastated, and I thought, what just happened? Right. And so I hung my head for a little bit and thought, maybe I'm not good at educating people, on this topic. Like maybe I just suck at it or something. There's something that happened, and maybe I should just give up and just, let it be. But I only allowed myself to be in that for a little bit. Right. And then I said, okay, no, Camilla, you can definitely have success at this. You just have to figure out what went wrong. So I take a look back at what went wrong. And really what went wrong was I was so focused on myself that I was not talking about the opportunity in a way that, hey, this is so amazing for you and your family. It was, I need you to invest so I can have the success in my life. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that was the biggest thing that I learned, is that if you want to be a go-getter, sure, go-getters can get places, but it's more important to be a go-giver, which is a really fantastic book if you haven't read that.
Amazing.
And so I completely changed my mindset. And when I went and just said, you know what, this cannot be focused on you, Camilla. This cannot be all about you. It has to be about the passive investor, their journey, where they are right now, how to be able to get them from A to Z, what education is needed to be able to get them to say, okay, yes, I want to try this. Remember your own journey, Camilla. Like, you had anxiety about it when you first invested $50,000. It's a big chunk of money, and so I just kind of had to go back to that place, and I had to take passive investor Camilla by the hand and say, okay, what do you need? Yep. And that's where I really feel like when I was able to pivot and focus really hard on the passive investor's journey and exactly what they need to understand and learn before they can invest, and I'm not going to be the sleazy salesperson who's like, come on, man, just invest. It's not right. Yeah. Like this is people's lives that we are affecting, and I want to absolutely make sure that I'm affecting them in a positive way.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. I'm tongue-tied thinking about it so much. One of my friends and mentors, Russell Gray, he says, it's never, ever, 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 ever about you. It's always about your potential investor. And it's one of those things I can't agree with you more, Camilla. And something that I guess 20 years of working in enterprise sales is one of the things that also helps me recognize that with you. And I'm glad that you have seen that, and you're also able to bring that forward in that mentality, because it's something that adds so much value to potential investors, because it is a journey. And you know what? I can't even believe it, but it's coming to the last question. And this is really about helping the Going Long family fill our minds with knowledge. Going Long question number 3, the Going Long final 3 is, what is the one book that you would recommend to the Going Long family today?
So I'm going to recommend The Pumpkin Plan today by Mike Michalowicz. It's a hard name to say, but The Pumpkin Plan. So this one is pretty awesome. So the subtitle is A Simple Strategy to Grow a Remarkable Business in Any Field. So Mike is kind of a master at simplifying complex concepts. And so basically he compares your any business that you are building, or you can even take this into your own W-2 and saying that, hey, if you want to be the best at something, think about the giant pumpkins, like the farmers who grow the giant pumpkins and win the contest every year. How do they do it? And he talks about some different concepts, but then also he has every single chapter, he has anecdotes about how to pumpkin plan the airline industry or how to pumpkin plan this industry. And so he has all sorts of really interesting ways to think about it. And I love it.
Fantastic. So The Pumpkin Plan. So we will make sure that is also included in the show notes, and so that everyone has that as your recommendation. And Camilla, I every single time, it's amazing. Like, these conversations just fly by. Like, literally, I feel like we just started 2 seconds ago when we start talking about you and your future husband as college students working and figuring out you didn't want to have any debt, and you were working to make sure that you didn't have any debt. And well, you went from there, and then you decided the person, when you were living in the garage, the investor / realtor, you decided to ask the right question, right? And it's about, sometimes you get better answers when you ask better questions, and you figured out like, hey, listen, how are you going to be able to do something similar? And so not only did you take what you learned and you took it from the theory and you actually put it into practice. And so you and that husband of yours bought a 6-bedroom, not 1 or 2 bedroom, a 6-bedroom house, and decided, hey, we're going to put somebody in the basement. And that person that was in the basement was helping you to make sure that you only had to pay $150 a month. And as your life started changing, you realized like, hey, listen, we're getting financial benefit and we want to keep doing this, but our life is also changing. And so we want to make some different changes. But you saw something that was working and you were diligent, and you were able to provide your family with new geographies and bringing your family closer together, and all of these things as you continue to move from place to place and gain experience over 15 years. And then you decided, hey, listen, we're doing all this kind of ourselves, but is there a better way? You ask the next right question is, how are you able to get into something bigger? And you realize that it wasn't just about you. It was about being able to bring a group of people together and being able to go have a similar vision and a similar goal and be able to go larger and benefit together. Each person doing different activities within the group, but always working towards a common goal. And not only were you able to do that and you decided, hey, listen, you took Camilla by the hand and helped her through her journey to make that first investment. And now you're also on the other side and able to continue not only using the same skills that you've had as you lived around the world and had different life skills, motherhood and coach and things like that, transferring knowledge. And you're continuing to do that. And now in an area where you're helping people with steady stream investments understand how they can also gain more control over their financial life, over their life, and the things that they want to be able to do. And I know the stories that you've told us have made so many people with the Going Long family as they're running on the treadmill or cooking dinner, they're like, yeah, Billy, get to the point. How can we get in touch with Camilla? She's already told us about LinkedIn and da-da-da. But help us understand what is the best way for the Going Long family to get in touch with you, find out more about you and what you're doing at Steady Stream Investments.
Yeah. So I'll give you my direct email address. It's Camilla@steadystreaminvestments.com. So please reach out. You can also visit, I have two websites, CamillaJeffs.com. That's an easy one, where you can see, grab a bunch of material. And then SteadyStreamInvestments.com is the main one for all things passive investing. Or connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm easy to find. There's not that many Camilla Jeffs in the world.
All right. Perfect. And it's LLF. So Camilla with 2 L's. That's and correct. Jeffs with 2 F's. So also, Going Long family, you know this, and I say it ad nauseum, and I'm going to say it again. When you reach out to Camilla on LinkedIn, make sure that you let her know that you are watching her do the cool teeter-totter thing, or that you are listening on the podcast, so that it just makes the conversation much easier for the two of you to continue on. So with that, I would just say, Camilla, thank you so very much for investing your time with me and the entire Going Long family. It's been really, really awesome. I really, really appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thanks, Billy. I'm so happy that all of you out there listening continue educating yourselves. It's really the most important thing.
All right. Fantastic. Camilla, if you give me 15 seconds, just say the last words to the Going Long family. Really quickly. Didn't you love that Going Long family? Camilla just left so many great stories and great ways for you to understand tangible actions that you can put into place today so that you can get to your goals much faster than Camilla and I did, for instance. So, and she's sharing that with you. So, you know what? I know you're going to be putting these steps into action, and you're going to be sharing today's conversation with your friends, with your family, and having conversations around it. And so until then, I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next episode. So go out and make it a great day. And thank you very much. Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? When I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long-distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.